Hollow Knight Silksong releases this week, so I wanted to replay Hollow Knight. I did this by attempting a unique game mode called Ascend. Here's my first attempt. I descended into Hollow Nest and immediately headed out of the initial area, taking a minor detour to collect a charm in the Fear of the Fallen. While retracing my steps, I also collected the Geo Rocks on the way in case it's required for later, and then smashed the gate blocking my way to Dirtmouth, and dropped into the fading town. I leapt into the well to enter the Forgotten Crossroads, in which I sprint right, past the Temple of the Black Egg, to collect my first grub, something that could be helpful later as it could be a goal itself, or allow me to get items and geo for other goals. The next thing to do was head to the False Knight fight. On my way there, I grabbed another grub using a Venge Fly to poke her off to get the height required, and then I spoke to Cornfear to collect a map. Look, it's been a year since I played the game last. The last thing I want to do here is get lost. I also lured another Venge Fly in order to access a mass shard that usually requires the Mantis Claw or Monarch Wings. Before I entered the room to the False Knight fight, I opened up the Stag Station. The False Knight fight is skippable, however the geo you get from beating him was enough to warrant completing the fight rather than avoiding it. I also learned here that you can fling the rocks back at him to damage him, which is pretty neat, and it does a sizable chunk of damage. After beating him, I reaped his rewards and headed to the Snail Shaman to pick up the Vengeful Spirit spell. I cleared his task and picked up another charm in Soul Catcher before leaving. With this spell acquired, Green Path is now accessible after beating another Elder Balder blocking the path. With the roadblock disposed of, I walked through Green Path and saw the next game's protagonist in Hornet. I didn't fancy taking the long road to fight her, so I took the same path by luring a squid nearby to bug her off to go through the door. I can't do firewall skips, so this is the closest I'll get. I won't lie, I did get lost from here, but eventually found myself at the right path, so after a quick fight with a Moss Knight, and after saying goodbye to the Vengefly King and Zoe, as he's clearly capable of beating it himself, I continued down this route. I slayed another Moss Knight, guarding another friendly grub, in which this is the first time I've seen an enemy clip through a wall. Another Stag Station was nearby as well, so I paid the toll before heading to fight Hornet. The fight was short and sweet, unlike the time we waited for Silksong, and the Mothwing Cloak was obtained, allowing us to access the other main areas around the Forgotten Crossroads, in particular, the Fungal Wastes. Now, I haven't specified what the game mode is yet. This is an ascend board, where the goal is to reach the top with each objective being hidden until an adjacent objective is completed. All of these goals here are pretty late into the game or require other items, such as the Grimchild needed the Dream Nail as a prerequisite, something I had completely forgotten about prior to this. First goal on the chopping block for me was to defeat the Mantis Lords. It's nearby to the Mantis Claw, an incredibly helpful item to move around Hollow Nest, while also housing a useful charm and a lot of geo in a nearby room after beating them. With Ascend being established, I headed to the Fungal Waste from the Forgotten Crossroads. I headed straight to the Mantis Village with a slight detour to another grub, find some bouncy purple shrooms and some funglings. Once arriving in the Mantis Village, I dashed my way to obtain the Mantis Claw to immediately descend into the Spike Maze, which is prior to the Mantis Lord fight. I challenged them to a fight and got to work in arguably one of the most fun boss fights in gaming history. With some swift movements, some pogos and some spell slinging, I defeat the Mantis Lord's first try to complete the first goal. Now the first goal was complete, what was next? Talk to Hornet 4 unique times. This goal was way too long, as it requires you to do the Kingdom's Edge Hornet fight, as well as go to the Void and speak to her there. I decided to pivot to the goal to get the Dash Slash. Before heading to obtain this combat ability, I grabbed the Dash Master charm and spoke to Bretta to bring her back to Dirtmouth. I then collected the Mark of Pride charm, my personal favourite, along with a large stash of geo mentioned earlier. In this time, I also decided to drop the bridge between City of Tears and Fungal Waste, and also used the crest from before to open the door. I walked through the City of Tears towards the monument to speak to Hornet just in case we needed to go later, and then made my way to Relic Seeker Lem, who will be the GOAT of this run, as you will see. I saw the Hollow Nest seals and Wanderer's journals I picked up along the way to him, grabbed another grub slightly north, and then continued north to unlock the Stag Station in order to head back to Dirtmouth. I stopped by Cornfear's shop to buy some supplies, went to Bretta's hut to pick up my second Mass Shard, and headed to Howling Cliffs by going through the secret door next to my humble beginnings. After this large travel, I finally made it to Nailmaster Mato's hut to obtain what I thought was a Dash Slash. This wasn't the case. Dash Slash's location is in Kingdom's Edge, not here. I didn't panic though. I went to the nearest thing, which was to summon the Grim Trip, and I forgot you needed the Dream Nail to do this. Obtaining the Dream Nail was very much the next step. Instead of going through Crystal Peak, I decided to use a Shade Skip to access the Blue Lake. I quickly took out the Gru's mother. Then I spoke to Slide to return him to Dirtmouth for later. Then spoke to Salubra and bought a charm and a charm notch so I could equip the Wayward Compass. I then purposefully died as far as right of the room as possible, so my shade would spawn on the right hand side as opposed to the left. It took me a couple of tries to pull off. However, I dashed off the wall after jumping as high as possible, and then pogoed off my own shade to reach the top. I didn't kill my shade, however, so I would have to come back later. I crossed the blue lake, turned to the resting ground to finally obtain the dream nail after interacting with the monument. Using the stag station after waking up, I travelled to the Forgotten Crossroad to reclaim my shade, then back to Dirtmouth to speak to Sly to buy a third mass shard. I returned to the bug nearby the Grim Troop torch and dream nailed it to allow the coals to spawn, in which I slashed to spawn the Grim Troop. After returning to the main menu to quick travel back to the bench in Dirtmouth, I spoke to Grim to obtain the charm I needed for my next goal, upgrading the Grim Child once. I travelled to the flames around the map and killed a Grimkin novice in the City of Tears, then made a quick stop to obtain another charm on the way to the one located in Greenpath. Upon arrival to the Grimkin novice in Greenpath, I realised the last one was in Crystal Peak in an area which required the Crystal Heart. The best way to get there currently is the toll, which requires the Lumafly Lantern in Forgotten Crossroads, so I scurried to kill the Moss Charger for some extra geo, and cross this acid lake to smash a geofill chest, to then return to Dirtmouth using the reload trick from before. Then I headed to the Grubfather's Den to receive my hard-earned geo from rescuing the other grubs, in which I received another mass shard to complete my first mass to obtain another hit point. To make up for the last bit of geo, I revisited Lem to sell my relics, to then purchase the Lumafly Lantern from Sly and Dirtmouth, to finally allow me to purchase the toll door to access the Crystal Peak area. Once there, I headed upwards with a detour to grab another grub from the spike section here. Then I fought the Crystal Guardian, in which he did kill me once. Pretty embarrassing, I know. With a singular rematch, I toppled him. From there, I grabbed another grub after the crushing machine section, and then obtained the shopkeeper key for Sly, just in case it's a goal later. After some platforming, I obtained the Crystal Heart power-up for the Crystal Dash ability, and then went through the opposing door to claim another grub after some more crushing machinery. I travelled to the last novice Grimkin, defeated him, and after another detour to get another grub, returned to Dirtmouth to speak with Grim to upgrade my charm, and finally complete a different goal from the first row. The next goal which was revealed was obtain 4 charm notches. I determined, though this was a long goal, it was the best one to pursue. We already had one from Celubra before. I was a few charms away from purchasing a second one from her. There was a charm notch in Fungal Waste after killing 2 Shroomel Ogres, and the last one was in Fog Canyon, where Azma's Tear was required. That was the next step. I initially travelled to Fungal Waste to take on the duo of Shroomel Ogres to achieve a second charm notch. Then taking a detour to grab the Queen Station Stag, and a further one to head to the Overgrown Mound to get the Howling Wraith spell, my now highest source of damage from this point onward. I reloaded my game and I headed to Celebra to obtain the Shaman Stone to pair with my new spell, then to Lem again to get some more geo, to buy a simple key from Sly, which then allowed me to access the Royal Waterways underneath Lem's shop. Located in the Royal Waterways is the Dung Defender, prerequisite for Izma's Tear. This fight did take a while, as we're still at nail level 0, so the Dung Defender was surprisingly tanky. I still defeated him anyway on my first try. I then headed to the C-Dash area to cross to Izma's Grove, took a wrong turn to find a militia, and spoke to her. This provides another way to access the other side of the City of Tears. I then proceeded the correct way, picked up Izma's Tear, went straight for the Charm Notch in Fog Canyon's explosive puzzle. Again, though embarrassing, I did die here and had to run back to this place, which again I nearly died, but still obtained the 3rd Charm Notch. The 4th and final one was a quick visit to Celebria to purchase, and with that, the goal was completed. The next goal revealed was visit the Midwife. However, the goal to the left, which was revealed, was obtain the Lumafly Lantern. I'd already completed that one, so I ticked it off. That then revealed the Grubsong charm, which with a quick visit to the Grub Den, we could obtain due to my diligency in saving the grubs. Funnily enough, I got incredibly lucky again. The next goals which were revealed were use the City Crest and defeat the Dung Defender, both of which I've already done. The next set of goals were defeat the Crystal Guardian and speak to a militia, which, again, both were already done. The next goal revealed wasn't so lucky though. Defeat the Soul Tyrant. Not just the Soul Master, the Soul Tyrant, the Dreamfall. This boss would be even tankier than the Dung Defender while attacking faster and being harder to dodge, especially with the lack of Shade Cloak or the Monarch Wings. I entered the Soul Sanctum and made my way to the Soul Master boss pretty easily. Beating this boss was just as easy as getting to it, with me beating it first time without too much difficulty. The quick reload of the area I could dream nail the corpse to fight against the required version, the Soul Tyrant. This boss was the complete opposite, hard and very long. It spanned a total of 10 minutes, with the first phase being masterfully executed, minimal damage taken, and relatively no risk of dying whatsoever. The Howling Wraith spell carried me through this, especially with the boost from the Shaman Stone. It allowed me to output an immense amount of damage, shortening the time required to beat it. The second phase wasn't as simple though, and required my full concentration. Exchanged blows 1-for-1 with him. It was a very tough fight, to the point where I barely beat him. I lived on 1 hit point, but in what manner I beat him didn't matter. I at least beat him, so I could tick that goal off the board. The final goal revealed was Lurien the Watcher, another fairly long goal which requires another possibly grueling fight in the Watcher Nights, especially with my nail being unupgraded. This goal requires me to head to the other side of the City of Tears, so I paid a quick trip to Militia, and with a simple pogo off a foreground object, I jumped up to the path to get to Lurien. I rested at a nearby bench to change my charms, and have a closer respawn point, just in case I died. For the Watcher Knights fight, I needed to make the fight as easy as possible. I cut down the chandelier to remove one of the Watcher Knights entirely from the fight. Despite this, I still got my ass kicked. I killed a minimal amount of them, my dodging was extremely lackluster, and my positioning was outright terrible. A quick rerun later though, I challenged the gankers again, which this time I beat their asses in 5 minutes, with minimal risk, with some expert dodging this time, and a lot of vengeful spirits being unleashed to allow me to finally see Lurien. I struck Lurien with the Dream Nail, and after slashing him a couple times with the nail in the Dream World, I absorbed him, removing one of the seals off the Temple of the Black Egg, and thus ending my ascension. The board was complete. If you enjoyed watching, please subscribe as more Hollow Knight and Silksong content will be coming in the future. If you want to try this yourself, I strongly recommend you do using LOCKOUT.LIVE. The website just got a massive visual overhaul and is much easier to navigate than before. I'll leave a link in the description. And again, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.